always think that Knowmore had a really unique role in supporting survivors during the commission process, because it was really, I think, the first time that a truth-telling process like a Royal Commission had really thought through carefully what the whole service system needed to be for people, and to have had the foresight, I think, through the Attorney General's Department and broader government to have actually funded a multidisciplinary, trauma-informed, culturally safe legal service. Like, it was actually, really exciting, and I think the work that was done by our service and by the people in our service, our teams, Aunty Glendra, people that just walked alongside everyone every day. We just got a chance, I think, to be part of people sharing their story and coming forward and being heard and being truthful. They also really needed to understand their legal support options, and that was super important. And then we didn't kind of know it at the time, but more and more we became more and more aware of the legal options that people didn't have. And so I think that really added that advocacy voice as well to seeing that things like, the redress scheme and things that have come since, that there was a real platform of advocacy to build on in that regard as well. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. It's been an honour to be part of people's journey and to hold their hand.
Yeah.
And walk with them on this journey.
A lot of stories, Auntie, a lot of experiences, and I think going out into the prisons was pretty profound for me as well. And just realising how many people were had never had a chance ever to tell their story, and had a lifetime of victimisation and then incarceration, and we're still living with that. And that was but also some of the best work I think we did as a service, even though it was hard sometimes too.
And to be part of people's first time disclosures too, because there was a lot of first time disclosures in prison. Young ones that had been removed from their family, had gone through the juvenile justice system and ended up in the big house, all because of trauma that had happened to them. And no one believed them, and we believed them.
Sure did, yeah.
Well, I think, both myself and Dean come with a whole heap of credibility in communities. We've both done no harm in jobs that we've done and made a difference. And I think when you have a male and a female worker that have credibility and the community trust, people are much happier to be part of that journey with us. So they hadn't been harmed by us in the past, and we'd both done a lot of work in communities, so they trusted us that they would also not be harmed when they told their most deepest secrets.
I think there's probably a few things that come to mind with that, and I can talk about, I suppose, what my experience was of how the Royal Commission worked and the reasons that was hugely successful on lots of levels. But I think as well what we've seen with this particular Royal Commission was right from the get-go, people they trusted in it, and it had the complete confidence of survivors and the broader community really early on, and they never lost that. And I've often thought about why that was. I think there was incredible leadership from all of the commissioners, and there was a way that the commission itself was structured. So the process of, I think, having individual private sessions for people so that they knew that they could be safe and heard and share their experiences and be believed was hugely powerful. And, obviously, the public hearings and the research. So the structure itself of the commission was, I think, incredible. But we also had a chance to build a broader approach and service system that was truly trauma-informed from the ground up, and all of our services together too also sort of spoke a bit of a common language around that. I think we're all really committed to the same things with people. But maybe, Auntie, maybe you can talk about how people felt about coming forward, because it just, the floodgates opened, didn't they?
They opened from day one, and I think, you know, what I think was really important, that everybody got a chance. Didn't matter if you had no literacy or numeracy skills, you could draw a painting. You could, you know, like have someone support you. You could get someone to write something. There was different ways of getting what you wanted to say and to be included out there. So you didn't have to do the public hearing. Like, I know somebody who did artwork and sent it in, and somebody wrote a little story about what that artwork meant, and it was really profound. And like you said about the commissioners, they were really respectful. You know, like, I remember when the commissioner went to the Kinchula boys, and you know, they were met with a whole lot of hostilities, but they still went. They turned up, and you know, they were brave to sometimes go into places that, you know, they were met with hostilities. Well, I think, you know, for Aboriginal people, that the Royal Commission is looked at the place that removing children has played in the destruction of families and cultures. So I think that was one of the recommendations, that, you know, supporting families to stay together. And for me, that is really important, that was honoured. That, you know, you can't, you know, you take people from their families because you think they're being abused, and then they get sexually abused in institutions. You know, put the resources into the families to stay together. And I think they learnt that lesson. That our out-of-home care system hasn't met the needs of children that it's supposed to be protecting in lots of cases.
And there's probably lots of things that you could say. One of the things that, and I'm sure, Aunt, you've seen this as well, but just how much more believed people are now when they express that, you know, something like that might have happened to them. You know, when we think about how long it takes people to disclose for the first time, and as a community now, there's so much more acceptance of, even though it's a terrible thing that it happens in the first place, but, you know, there's so much more voice now for survivors of all kinds, and I think the Royal Commission really helped shine a light on that, and also make it something that people saw as a strength in sharing those experiences, rather than something to be ashamed of. So I think that's been a huge shift, that, and, you know, kind of a groundswell that we've seen at a community level as well. Certainly, you know, you can look at recommendations around criminal justice reform. We've seen statutes of limitations, you know, shift. We've seen redress schemes. There's all sorts of things that have happened, but I often go back to what might survivors say, and I think it starts with what that commission was there for in the first place, which was a place for people to come forward and share what had happened to them and be believed. And
I think being believed is the big big thing that resonates in people's heart. You know, because for some people, it was the first time they were believed. And that gave them strength, because I think, you know, the people that are the survivors are the strongest people I know. And, you know, it can be like, you know, that 87-year-old who in that public forum said, I just want people to know what happened. And his dear wife said, I always knew there was something wrong. but I just didn't know what it was. And, you know, he was 87 and felt brave enough to be able to say something at 87. That, you know, just shows the strength. And to hold that all in and hold that pain in, and, you know, probably affected their relationship.
I always remember too how often people would say, I don't ever want this to happen to another child.
Exactly.
And, you know, just to deeply understand that motivation in people about, you know, that they weren't just sharing their experiences for themselves, and that's important to do that, but also because they just had so much hope and will that it didn't happen to another child like it happened to them. And I feel like that's, you know, such an important thing to remember about survivors of child sexual abuse and what they want for others.
Yeah, exactly. They all said that. They all said that. I think that needs to be answered by the survivors. You know, like, I think they know what's best for them. And I think, you know, when 1 in 3 people have been affected by childhood sexual abuse, it'll be lots of recommendations.
I agree with that. I think it's still very prescribed about, you know, and we still have particular ways of setting up services and providing them that, you know, I think we're getting better at that, but I'm sure that, you know, I think survivors would like much more of a voice in how services are built and how they're provided, and that's certainly something that, you know, Knowmore feels really, like, committed to as well. But I think there has been a lot that's better, but there's still so much to do, and probably on lots of different fronts. And, you know, I think you know, that it shouldn't be hard to get help that you need through the course of your life. Recovery is not a linear process. You need to maybe move in and out of, you know, healing and support, and, you know, that still feels quite hard for people to navigate, and it shouldn't be. And I think, like you're saying, Auntie, people need to be empowered to lead that for themselves.
One thing that I'd like to see is a 24-hour line that people that have that can ring and have a yarn to just an auntie or someone else that's, you know, knows their story, knows their journey, because these things don't finish at 5 o'clock. You know, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning, we all know what goes through our heads at 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's no one to talk to. That's what I think, you know, would be really something that would, you know, make me very happy if we could have, you know, like, I mean, we've got other services that, but, you know, they're not I mean, you know, this is a bit, you know, in our pockets, but, you know, we are really good at what we do at Knowmore. We are really good at what we do. We've got great people, great staff, doing a really difficult job, and no one is here unless they're 100% committed for the clients, and only for the clients.
Good on you, Auntie. I think as well that some of the recommendations that the Royal Commission made, you know, in Volume 9 and other places, but really saying that what people most needed as well was proper wraparound services that were holistic in nature, and, you know, that I'm not sure necessarily that we're quite there. You know, like asking people to navigate the silos of how things are set up and run is really hard. And also too, and Auntie will be able to comment on this better than I, and I think that's what you started out by sort of talking about too, Aunt, but you know, there's nowhere near the amount of flexibility that there should be for different ways of healing, particularly for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander survivors. And
well, we'll put that in our submission list. 24-hour on-call auntie and uncles.
Mm. And healing, like you said, healing looks different for every single person, and you should be able to have more of a say, I think, in how you navigate that.
Sometimes just getting together with people that have your shared experience is what you need too. A barbecue, sausage sizzle.
Absolutely, and there's such power in peer support, and I feel like, there's some amazing services out there that, have been doing that work for years, and survivor-led advocacy groups and support groups, and, we forget that, we're very recent to this work, and there's so many survivors that were demanding that their voices be heard way before there were commissions, and they knew what we're still figuring out, which is that peer support is so critical. You need, when you've been removed from your family, removed from your community, mistreated in that way, there's so much healing comes from creating a new community, and that's something that I think we need to value more as well.